We are Mike and Jeannie, and we restore old houses. In 2021, we moved to South Carolina and bought a 120-year-old Victorian house. Follow along as we put the polish back on this Victorian masterpiece.
A very warm welcome back to 1834 Restoration House.
Last week at the end of the video, we promised you that we were going to do a little bit of a woodworking project, and today we're actually going to start on that. It's a dreary, wet day outside.
Oh my, yes.
In early summer, kind of weird, but hey, yeah. It's the South. That's how we roll down here. So let's grab some tools and some lumber and get started. When's the last time you saw a 12-inch wide pine board? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I got that from our local sawmill. The original plan called for 4 boards that were 6 inches wide by 1 inch thick. When we got to the sawmill, we told the guy what we wanted there. He said he didn't have any that small, but he had some that he could cut down that were 12 inches wide. I thought, well, we can do that here with our equipment. So we went ahead and got the 12 inchers. And what we're going to do now is follow the list, and I'm going to cut them down in blocks. So I have 28, 26, 21, and 25. Now, before I do that, my end here was cut with a chainsaw back at the mill, so I want to square that up. Well, the instant I keyed down on my saw, it died and threw the breaker, and I'm not sure what's going on here because we don't really have much of a load on this circuit. I did notice the last time I was under the house that there are a lot of junctions and wire nuts between here back to the breaker box. And we do need to go into there and correct that at some point. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut the different chunks of wood to get what we need. So the first one is 25, after that will be 21, then 26, and then finally 28. So those are all the rough cuts we need. What? Oh, hi. So those are all the rough cuts we need. We do have some left over. It looks like I've got about a 4-foot piece here, and another 4-foot piece off the last one.
More projects.
We'll be able to use them for other things, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. All right, let's clean up and go back in the wood shop. Now I'm going to take all these boards that we cut and rip them right straight down the middle to give us a bunch of 6-inch boards. On the last piece, we don't need to cut it right down the middle because we're only using a small portion of it, so I'm going to cut off a couple of 2-inch strips. So let's go ahead and reset this. Set it up for about 2 inches. Before I make a cut, I tried to identify if the board is bowed. Usually it's bowed in the center. If I can rock the board then I need to flip it upside down. So in this case, I've got it in the right spot here. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 strips. Could probably take it off of here, really.
That's what I was thinking, so you can use the rest of it for something else.
Right. So let's just run this through here twice and we'll get 2 perfect pieces.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's go. It gets really loud here in the shop. Between the saw and the dust collector, you can't go in here without hearing protection. This machine right here is called a jointer, and what its job is to do is to flatten one side of the board. So I'm going to take the board first, and I'm going to put the face down through there, and that'll give me a perfectly flat edge. Now, when I do this, I want to make sure that the cupping is this way, not this way. That way the board will ride along on 2 edges like this, and it'll remove a 1/16 of an inch every time I pass it through. What I'm going to do is pass it through as many times as I have to get this flat. And you'll see when I pull it out, you'll probably see that this edge here is good and this edge here is good, but there's a little in the middle that's still rough cut. And it may require a couple of passes to get that right. So let's go ahead. I've got my paddles to push it through. Don't ever use bare hands. Okay, let's get going here. That's the first step in fine woodworking, is to make one side flat and one edge flat and completely 90-degree parallel with the bottom edge. So these are what we call reference edges, and these 2 reference edges can be used to do everything else that we need to do with the machinery. So with this flat edge down here, we'll put this through the planer, and then the planer will come and shave off the top here, and it'll make the top perfectly flat. Because if I was to put this through without doing that, then the board would wobble through and it wouldn't be perfect when it came out the other end. And the same thing with the table saw. I've got a really straight edge to run against. The machine that I just used, called the jointer, every time you put a board through it, it removes 1/16 of an inch off of that board. Now we're going to the planer, and the planer is fixed. So when I put something through, it's going to take off, let's say, a 1/16 of an inch. The next time I put the board through there, it will do nothing and will continue to do nothing. So I have to adjust it between each removal. So what I'm going to do is set this up to some value where it just starts to skim the wood off. I'm going to run all the boards through one time, and then I'll measure them and find out where we're at, and then I'll bring it down just a little bit further, and then we'll run the boards through again. We'll repeat that process as many times as it takes until we reach our target thickness of 3/4 of an inch. Now, because we ran this through the jointer, this edge here is flat and smooth. So we never have to do this edge again, but we'll be taking the material off of this edge over and over again, shaving it down until we reach 3/4 of an inch. Every time we run pine through the shop, we have the same problem. It never happens with hardwoods or any other species, but it's always pine because it's so soft. It always clogs up right here before it goes into the dust collector. And the reason is there are these splines that go across there, and I get that they're trying to stop debris from going into the impellers, but the thing is, the dust collector mechanism itself already has splines. The pieces get caught, and they start to build up, and pretty soon they're packed in like a hamster nest. And that just doesn't work. We keep having to take it apart. So we modified the part and took the splines off of there. And that way it's able to flow freely. Now, we still have a limit of how fast we can feed and not clog this up. So we have to be cognizant of that. But before that, it was happening all the time, no matter how careful we were. Whenever we do a project out of rough cut lumber, we always order our rough cut lumber larger than what we need. If we need this thickness, we'll go up the next 1/4 inch size thickness. If we need it this wide, we'll order it 1/4 or half or even an inch wider than what we need, because we know that we're going to be cutting it down. So we want to have 5 inches right here. We have almost 6. And we're going to go ahead and run all 10 of these pieces through the saw and get them down to 5. We did a good amount of work off camera, cutting the boards right down to the right widths. We still need to cut them to their proper lengths, but one thing I'd like to do first before we do that is take these boards here and thin them down. So the panel of the easel is going to be built with this, and it's still fairly hefty. We don't want these things to weigh a ton, so I'm going to cut these down from 3/4 of an inch thick down to a 1/2 inch thick. We'll do that, of course, with the trusty planer. One of the drawbacks to doing woodworking like this is you tend to collect a lot of shavings and sawdust, a lot. We have bags and bags of it, and so what we do is we usually save it up and then we offer it on Craigslist and somebody comes and gets it. All right, so we need to empty this thing. First thing I'll do is take the strap off. And then the bags are hooked on with these spikes. So we have to undo the spikes. Gina's got the back side. And now we'll go ahead and pull this down a little bit. Hopefully it's not too full. But I'm going to just pull this down off. And look at that. Look at that beautiful shaving. This would be great for somebody who's raising chickens or hamsters or whatever.
Great fine shavings.
Yep.
You got that side?
I have that side. So we usually just put the whole bag on top. And then we'll flip it upside down.
Shake your black bag a little. I don't think it'll be fit otherwise.
Go ahead and pull. And that's how we transfer from one bag to another.
Without creating a lot of dust.
Right. We just had a good session of planing, and we took all these boards and thinned them down to pretty close to a 1/2 inch. They're not exactly perfect, but they're flat. And they do have a little bit of moisture left in them, I think. They just feel like they're not completely dry. So hopefully they won't move around too much. But they're noticeably lighter, and we want our easels to be light so we can pick them up and carry them. We don't want them to weigh a ton, which it would have if we'd left them at 3/4 of an inch, or worse yet, a full inch. So we'll put these aside. The next thing we want to do now is trim these all down to the proper length. But I want to show you, just in planing off, well, maybe a 1/4 of an inch, off of each one of these boards. Look what it did to our dust collector. Just those boards right there was enough to halfway fill that up. Now I'm going to start cutting these boards down to the proper length. Since I don't know which ends are square, I'm going to go ahead and basically trim just a hair off this end first, and we'll know that these are square, and then we'll go back and get the other end. Normally when you do a cross cut on a table saw, you use a sled. And so the sled goes on the saw, and you push the entire sled into the blade like this with your board piece like that. It's a good, safe way of doing it. Since we don't have one of those, there's two other options. One is to put this edge up against the fence and have the blade cut out here with this long cantilevered board, but that's not very stable. So the other way to do that is to go old school, and that's what we're going to do today. So what we do is we take our ruler. We're looking for 24 inches. Now I'm feeling the edge right here with my left finger. I want to make sure that it's completely flush with the end of the wood. And I just make a mark right here well, my pencil lead just fell out. Take a look at these two pencils right here. This pencil here, I was trying to sharpen it, and it just wasn't working. I couldn't get the blade to cut through the wood, and finally was able to get enough off of there, and I discovered that this pencil is made of two different colors of wood, but still I was mystified as to why it wasn't sharpening. And then Jeannie told me that this pencil has been with her since she was a kid. Well, you know what happens to old wood? It turns into rock. And that's the case here with this pencil. So I took a modern pencil, and I did the same thing. It just shaved off so smoothly, so nicely. So that's what we'll use today. Let's try this again now. I'll make a mark at 24 inches. I think gravity is extra strong today. So we'll take our square and we'll lay it on here so we have this edge like that. And then we'll line that up to the pencil line. And I draw a line across here. Now I have a perfectly square line that I can use on the saw. This tool right here is somewhat of a sled. It moves back and forth, but it's really designed for doing angular cuts, where you will change the angle here and push it through the blade. A good crosscut sled is a much larger piece, and it holds the board firmly in place and perfectly aligned, but we'll make this thing work. Now, if you look at the blade, let's take a good close-up look here. You'll notice that the teeth are alternately raked in one direction and then the other direction. And that's to make a good crosscut. So what I'm going to do is line this up visually until that line is precisely lined up with the edge of the blade. In other words, I want to make a cut at the line, but I don't want to go on this side of the line. I want to be at the line and no further. With my left hand, I'm going to pinch the board up against this fence, and I'll do the actual motion with the other hand. Now you noticed that I didn't make any attempt to take that piece of wood out of there because it's too dangerous to put your hands anywhere near that blade, and if this thing is going to kick, it would kick in this direction, and that's okay. If it's going to kick, let it kick. Keep your hands off the blade. Don't get anywhere near it. And here we have a nice, clean, square edge right to the line and no further. If you're really careful with your measuring and your cutting, you can make wood absolutely precisely on measurement. Here are the cutoffs from all those boards that we just processed. There's really not much waste. Well, I guess today is Mailbox Monday, even though this video posts on Friday. We got a package here from a viewer, Sandra from New Jersey sent us something, and we thought we'd open it here before we get started on the glue ups, just to see what we have. Oh, it's soft.
Ooh, thank
Soft
you,
and
Sandra.
squishy. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, there's a note with it.
There's a note. Okay. Go ahead and open it.
Let's take a look here. It's soft. Oh. Whoa.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Did she make that?
I'm trying to read real fast. She did. A shawl she crocheted with me in mind as I was making that Victorian dress.
Wow.
Oh.
Look at that. That is so exquisitely done. And
That
the
is
detail
beautiful.
and the colors and everything.
I
Wow.
want to try that on.
Wow, yeah, try it on.
Oh, it is gorgeous.
So that goes with the Victorian dress, huh?
It does.
Wow.
Perfectly.
That's pretty amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that was
Thank you
amazing.
so much.
We're about to turn the corner on this art easel project here because it's time to do the glue up. So I've already pre-tested these to make sure that they fit together. Now, let's go ahead and get some glue on there. And I'll put them together. As I put the clamps on, the glue will squeeze out.
It's not a whole lot.
No, it's not a lot, because what will happen is when I clamp them, it'll push that joint tightly together and squeeze the glue out.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't know this, but when you do a glue joint like this, the glue joint actually becomes stronger than the surrounding wood.
I've seen videos about that. That was impressive.
Well, the first time I heard that, I thought somebody was joking. But it's
Did you
true.
try experiments then?
No, but I've seen demonstrations of it.
Okay.
We put a heavy toolbox in here to keep the wood from buckling in the middle.
Does it still look good over there?
Yeah, it needs a little bit of adjustment here and there, but yeah, it's good. So I'm going to bring a mallet in here and just do a little bit of tapping. I'm just going to go ahead and tap these down to make sure that they're level. I've adjusted both clamps to the point where they're finger tight. That's the point where I can't turn it anymore with my fingers. That's about right there and about right there. Any more than that, we risk having the whole thing just kind of blow up from the pressure. Now, real workers have proper workbenches with all kinds of clips and clamps and things they can really hold things down with. We're just not set up for that yet. So I'm using these toolboxes to make sure that this thing lays absolutely flat. We're going to leave it overnight and let the glue set up. Tomorrow, this panel should be perfect. We've done as much as we can do in this episode. Next time we see you, we're going to have 2 of these panels ready to go, and we'll start building the easels.
Oh, how
Pretty exciting. Jeannie's been working really hard on the landscaping, and we'll show you some of that next week.
Yes, I should be finished by the next video.
Yep.
Looking great.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Well, thank you for watching 1834 Restoration House. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next week.